the beginning of season 2, the crew of the Enterprise are sort of split asunder. Lon Noonien Singh left the crew in episode 9 of season 1 to go to try to take the young girl Oriana, who she rescued from the Gorn, to find her family. So she's gone. And then at the very end of season 1, number 1, Una Chin Riley was arrested by Starfleet for violations of their anti-genetic modifications directive, and she's going to be put on trial. So as we start, Captain Pike is talking to Una about the state of her case, and she needs a lawyer. And so he's trying to turn over anything he can to try to find her counsel who can help her with her situation.
I have traveled to the Volterra Nebula to find legal help for my first officer.
The ship is in space dock, and it's going through normal systems checks when suddenly they get a urgent secret message.
It's a distress signal.
Who's it from?
La'an, sir.
He's always usually, I think, calculating off of quantifiable data.
Permission denied, Lieutenant.
We must steal the Enterprise. In this case, he makes sort of an emotional calculation, which I think really is a nod to the original series episodes, The Menagerie Parts 1 and 2, and to who he will become.
I have never disobeyed your orders before, Captain. But this time, I must.
It's worth noting that we are constantly working on understanding how Spock becomes the Spock of TOS. And if you look at Spock's life as a whole, it really is a waveform. He's in a waltz with himself. Human Vulcan, human Vulcan, human Vulcan. Which part am I? Am I one or the other? Am I both? Am I neither? And we love that, and we lean into what we call Smiley Spock.
Irritating. Ah, yes. One of your Earth emotions.
We often are postulating that Spock has a bunch of moments early in his life where he's experimenting with who he is, his identity.
Certain you don't know what irritation is?
In fact, one of my ancestors married a human female.
Terrible, having bad blood like that.
How he identifies himself, and that's super fun. So Smiley Spock is he's a Spock that is more emotionally bold, although also emotionally convulsive, because he's not so good at it. And the relationships bear that out, but so too does his sudden instinct to steal the Enterprise.
Do you have a good reason to steal the ship?
I am having what you humans call a hunch.
A Vulcan with a hunch, that's a new one.
We needed an engineer because we had lost Hemmer last year.
Do not weep for me. I've had a good life.
Hemmer had this notion of his own purpose and as it related to his mortality. So we thought, well, what would be a flip of that? Here's someone who never really has to face their mortality. How would you see life differently if you were that person?
Why are you helping us?
Oh, please. We can spend a lot of time talking about this, or we can go. You decide. My character, Pelia, I believe is thousands of years old, come from a tribe called Lanthanites. Be happy to sub in. Been 100 years since I've gone out with engines of my own.
100 years, really?
And it was very funny because when we reached out to Carol, she was like, are you sure you want me? And we're like, yes, we're absolutely sure we want you. You are the energy we want.
Guilty as charged. The Enterprise, the bridge, the entire set is the biggest set I have ever seen. And I've been working professionally for 56 years, and I never saw anything like it.
It was really nerve-wracking because I really have a lot of respect and admiration for Anson and what he does because he really sets tone on the show. And that's a really tough task. I mean, non-actors might not know or understand what that's like, but to be a leader on the cast is really difficult. And so I sort of got a taste of that. I've never been like a number one on the call sheet, right, which Anson is. And so not only sort of off camera did it feel like, oh gosh, I've got to like set tone in this episode, but then figuring out how Spock resides in captaincy was really challenging. I remember like sitting in the chair felt kind of uncomfortable and how do I do it, you know, because people have different styles and the way they lean, and we used to joke about like different catch lines for different characters. You would just like sit and sort of play around with the possibilities.
I would like the ship to go. Now.
I actually pitched that line to one of our writers in EPs, and I think that's how it made its way in. That one really just felt right, so. I would like the ship to go now. Yeah.
Aye, aye, Captain. And then we have something called the AR wall, which is a giant projection which moves around all around us and on the ceiling, and you got to be really careful because if you look at it at the wrong time you would pass out because it's this huge thing moving and moving, and it's quite extraordinary.
Strangely, the AR sets were fewer this year, but the AR experience has been great this year. We know what the problems are, but we know how we can push it as well, and we've been trying to maximize each set. As an example of that, we've embraced hotspots. So once we design the big landscape that we're going to occupy, instead of just having one position in the middle of that landscape and making everything happen there, we've actually started to have multiple hotspots.
In episode 1 of season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, we created 4 mini sets really on one AR asset. So it sounds complex, and I'll kind of walk you through it a little bit. When you build an AR asset, when you build a virtual reality digital world, you can build that world 360. So our practical volume, that's the set we go shoot the asset in, that's a horseshoe shape. So that's not a full 360, that's about a 270. But what we did with Kajitar is we built a 360 world. So the entire world was designed to be 360. So what we did to create 4 worlds out of that same asset is we would spin the digital asset like a top. And we'd spin it 90 degrees, we'd lower it, we'd raise it. So for example, our first set in Kajitar was the Bazaar. And in the Bazaar was probably the direction we spent the most time detailing and articulating. And we shot in there for 1 day, and then overnight we pulled the Bazaar out and we brought a sort of a rock sort of kind of cave in on one side, and then we brought a medical tent in on the other side. So we actually split our AR wall down the middle. So looking one way was ledge over a cliff, and looking the other way was a medical tent. We also lowered it for the ledge to make you feel like you're on the cliff more. And for the medical tent, we raised it so we made the medical tent feel like it's up higher on this mountain looking down on this world. The challenge for myself as the director for that was I had to kind of fourth wall one of the directions and only shoot each set in 3 angles. Super easy to compromise to give up in order to get that much production value. The 4th asset was a nighttime version of the Bazaar, so it was a whole different look planted at night. This year, for the first time, we created a new sort of department called the Virtual Art Department. Myself and Jonathan and Jay-Z and VFX sort of run together, and it's the first time you take the VFX know-how from post-production, the creative know-how from art department, and you bring these 2 groups of geniuses together building these assets for the AR wall.
The advent of using virtual production and tying in visual effects to production, to virtual production, and being able to do that for the 2nd season and sort of seamlessly tie those things together. I think we learned a lot from season 1 that we brought into season 2, and I think that it shows.
Part of our job is to get as many characters on camera as you can. And when you're talking about a makeup show, that just turns into more makeup artists, more hairstylists. So we try and provide a background set of characters that are as close to the hero quality ones as possible. So it was interesting on this show, we had been developing something else, and I was like, this would be great as a half mask. So we made these half masks for Andorians and Klingons, and the first one was the Kylie. The idea was that for a single makeup artist could just do face paint very, very quickly, and then you put on all this production value, which is hand-punched hair, a hero sculpture, punched brows, all that stuff that would take an hour or more in kind of one-size-fits-all approach. So it's got this clamshell, it's got a little tensioning thing on the back so that you can put it on, tighten this down, and you've got a headpiece that stays on. And once you've done a little bit of color blend, or you even put a couple tattoos, you get things that are crossing over these seams that we want to hide. So we made these so that the edges are smaller than a human being. So as soon as you put it on anybody, they push out, and they always have what we call positive pressure around here and here. So there's not some flyaway gap that you'd normally get in some Don Post style mask. So the idea is like, now you've got this great production value from here, from a distance, or even in mid-range, where these actors don't have to go through the whole process of a prosthetic makeup.
You can take off your mask, Mr. Plank. The air is safe for you now. I knew you were stubborn. I just didn't think you were stupid.
Getting to work with Yetide Badaki was wonderful. Obviously, she's a great actress, but she's also a true Trek fan. So she was kind of, she divulged to me that she was a little bit starstruck, not with us, but with the Star Trek. She was so excited to be there, and we had a tremendous amount of fun working on those scenes together.
I saw what can happen to Illyrians who reverse their genetic modification just so the Federation will accept them. Old fears can be hard to let go of, but we were wrong about Illyrians. All of us.
202 is arguably my favorite episode of the season.
Congratulations. You discovered empathy. Let me know when the rest of your Federation catches up.
Because it does a bunch of things that I think Star Trek is uniquely suited to do. It takes today's issues and puts a kind of science fiction lens on them. And therefore allows us to kind of somewhat more clinically assess that which is tremendously personal and tremendously relevant socially. It's part of the job of Star Trek. Star Trek is not value neutral. It has an agenda.
Mira. I had to see it for myself.
Star Trek is an aspirational future. We want folks to look at Star Trek and say, I can see myself there. And Star Trek also talks about marginalization. It talks about how we otherize people. And lo and behold, we generated the idea of a marginalized people.
When they didn't know, they didn't care. The only thing that's changed is that they know the truth.
In doing that, we started this story. We started it with Una.
My family, we went to the non-Illyrian city. You see, some of us could pass. We could blend in. So we did.
But very frankly, we also didn't feel comfortable at the end of the day as a collaboration of writers of various complexions, putting the speech and the point of view about marginalization in the mouth of a traditional white blonde woman. It felt like, although the messaging was going to be right, it would get lost.
Do you know why I love the law? Because a law is not a mirror to society. A law is an ideal, a beacon to remind us how to be our better selves. And you have the opportunity today to do just that.
Which is not to say that white blonde women don't experience all sorts of things, but this was a particular kind of marginalization that really was racial, and so we wanted to build a construct where we could have somebody of color standing up and speaking that truth to Starfleet.
Years ago, the ideals of Starfleet called a young girl on the far side of the galaxy to service. Find those ideals inside yourself.
And that allowed a resonance to echo into today. And so that was our outcome goal, and that episode was built in order to do that.
We grant the defendant's request for asylum and find Una Chin Riley not guilty of all charges.
Una feels vindicated by the decision, of course. I think it's mostly relief because she loves Starfleet so much, and now her secret is finally out and there's a big weight lifted from her shoulders. But I think she wishes she could have done more for her people.
I'm sorry we didn't do more for Illyrians. This was a technicality.
It's a start.
And I think the storytelling is solidly exactly what it needs to be, which is to sort of say, question how you see the world, look and see whether you're making people other, but also don't try to tell a story where because you see that there's a happy ending, because just seeing it is the beginning of the happy ending that's coming much later.
La'an is suddenly sent back in time in episode 3.
Captain, I need to...
There's a natural chemistry, I think, when they first meet each other on the bridge.
Talk to you.
Ma'am, not to be impolite, but who are you and what the hell are you doing on my ship?
Now, this Captain Kirk is not a Captain Kirk that we've met. He's a guy who was actually not even born on Earth. He wasn't born in Iowa, he was actually born in space. So he's never been to Earth. And I think what's so exciting about this episode is that as an audience member, you watch Kirk discover Earth for the first time, and all of its flaws and all of its beauty.
You don't have sunsets in your time?
From the videos I've seen, we mostly have clouds of ash that won't clear for 1,000 years and underground lunar habitats with no view of the sun at all. My advice? Don't skip good hot dogs when you can get them.
She's tussling with these new, deep emotions. Fine. It's like he's opened up something within her. She's fighting that throughout the episode because, number one, she's never done that before, never really fully loved as an adult. And number two, she knows this is temporary. It's not her timeline. So there's a push and pull between them both.
Kirk wasn't aware of the weight and the gravitas of what he was about to do because he had no idea who Khan was. He died for the right reasons because he was trying to create a better future for humanity. And he knew that by accomplishing their mission, the world would be a better place.
Thank you again for completing his mission. It must have been harrowing. I have to insist that you not share any of what you experienced.
She knows he's not going to remember, but there's still kind of that little bit of hope that maybe he does. And so she calls him.
So, Lieutenant Kirk,
Hi.
do I know you?
And obviously he doesn't remember her, and she's kind of realizes that she has to let it go. She has to let him go. And even though it was a beautiful experience with him, that was it. And now she has to move on.
I'm Lieutenant Erica Ortegas. Most of the time, I fly the ship, which is cool, but can get boring. Today, I'm with the landing party, something I almost never get to do.
It's always the rug pull that is such a fun thing for the character.
We need you here keeping Enterprise safe.
Hi, Captain.
I may not be Eric Ortegas, but I was a test pilot, remember? We'll get you next time, I promise.
It was really organic the way that actually really fed into her story arc, which is sometimes you're looking so much at the other things you don't have, you forget to focus on the things you do have or how important you are because you have these other ambitions. Sometimes you need to just take a step back and realize it's great to have ambitions and you should, but what you're doing now is also very cool and awesome and great and important to a lot of people.
What is this place?
We had conversations about what exactly are you forgetting. You don't become someone radically different, but you also are missing a component of yourself. And, you know, we focused a lot on conversations of how fearful you get when you don't know what's happening.
I need to get out of here. Find someplace safe.
On the one hand, we're dealing with the practical issue of what am I doing here at the helm of a starship? On the other hand, you're dealing with the existential fear that I think we have, which is what happens if we forget what our purpose is, or we don't find what our purpose is, then what are we doing?
Destination?
Hello?
Please state your destination.
Me? Home! Take me home!
Deck 6.
And then this idea that how often do we all have imposter syndrome where we feel like we're not great at what we do, or are we really as good as we think we are? Are we the ones who can do this thing that we've been asked to do?
Not like this. I'm not ready.
And so often it really becomes this idea that the only person who can do it is you. Do you know? So if you don't do it, it's not gonna happen.
So, if the ship is gonna get out of this horrible place, it's up to me?
Affirmative.
Oh.
Reading that in the script and seeing that Erica has to find within herself, deep within, something that reminds her, you fly the ship. And there's only one person on the ship that can do what you need to do in this moment.
I'm Erica Ortegas. I fly the ship.
Affirmative.
Watching Melissa really embrace this, and also her excitement for it, to have an episode where she's gets to explore her character more, gets to really take these fun swings.
I'm Erica Ortegas. I fly the ship. I fly the ship?
She's sort of talking to herself and then the computer, and it becomes sort of like a mini Abbott and Costello between her and the computer. I mean, those were fun to write with Kirsten, and also fun to watch Melissa bring to life. And, you know, we did a lot of takes of variations of her saying, I'm Erica Ortegas and I fly the ship. I'm Erica Ortegas and I fly the ship. I'm Erica Ortegas and I fly the ship. And then just being able to have fun with those and then edit them together so that they just, you really are with her. But by the time she turns that corner and now you're in the corridor with her and she's marching towards camera, there's this determination, and you know she's Erica Ortegas and she flies the ship, and that she's gonna get you out of this.
I am Erica Ortegas. I fly the ship.
That moment of her being like, I'm Erica Ortegas and I fly the ship. That to me was, was filming it was wild, reading about it was wild. It also came at a time in my life when, you know, I was dealing with things, with grief, with trying to remember what it was that I was able to do not too long before.
I'm the pilot. Just trust me. I feel like I know how to do this.
When things outside of your control break you, and you have to remind yourself, no, I can do this. And I'm the only one who can do it. And so that the writers wrote what they wrote, and they made it a huge part of episode 4 was really special. But to shoot it was wild, emotionally and practically, you know, it was just wild.
Hang on.
Spock.
Mr. Spock? Tragedy still. You were in a shuttle accident. You were healed. Only whoever did this seems to have made you human. What the
Well, I have to mention how amazing Jordan Canning is, who directed episode 5. She was so down to clown on that episode and like understood what I was doing, because it was so outside the bounds of what I was normally doing as Spock, to be like really leaning into this sort of like comedic, goofy version of him.
Aye, aye, Captain. I'm sorry, but Captain, what is that amazing smell?
Oh, it's the bacon.
I mean, that's kind of me, to some degree. It's a very like childlike version of me.
Fascinating.
And the way it was written, I mean, it was really mapped out for me really well.
Hi, Mom.
Everyone has been in a situation where they have expectations of them that they have to be someone who maybe they aren't. You know, that they have to pretend to be something just to get through it. And so watching that through his eyes, you feel it. You feel what he's going through.
Are you kidding? You're going there already?
Spock, she hasn't even started.
So I tried to find moments like that where I could really see how childlike he is.
Don't you get it? Did you get it?
Yeah.
I got it.
And the delight that he can take in this amazing life that he has, to be on this starship, on this exploratory mission with all these strange and wonderful people.
I'm making up for lost time.
And yeah, I would argue that that was all really mapped out for me in the writing.
Vulcans can be such jerks.
I mean, Ethan's hilarious. He absolutely nailed that, I think. The chemistry between human Spock and Chapel just like really lit up in this beautiful way.
It felt like you needed that. Did I read the moment wrong?
No, it was really nice. It wasn't typical for you.
Is that okay?
And was so fun to play with. I loved it.
What is your relationship to this being?
I don't know.
Oh my God, Christine, come on! Seriously.
Even though it was like scary and vulnerable for Chapel, it was really satisfying for Jess to like push her there and then experience that kind of catharsis or that like piece of growth.
It's not all of him, because you took away the other part. A part that I was connected to. And I miss him as he was. Can you please help put him back?
And just the set was wild. Logistically, it was pretty difficult because we were in there for like, 16 hours or something, and it's a room of mirrors with like, swirling graphics that don't have any edges, and you can't see the edges of anything, and so you can never see where you're supposed to stand. It's really hot from all the lights. Every time the camera moved, the entire set moved, so we're all kind of holding on for dear life. Also, Celia and Melissa and I have a blast together whenever it's us.
Man, do we need our community in times of fear and anxiety. And I think in today's day and age, people have a really hard time asking for help.
As your captain, I need all my officers healthy, both physically and mentally. As your friend, I just want to help you understand what's happening.
I think it's going to be really, really wonderful for people who see themselves in Uhura to see her in this dark place and to see her be supported.
There's something else going on here. And if you let me, I can help you figure out what.
That's such a beautiful thing to see, and it was so lovely for me to experience, because in 206, there were moments of catharsis and there were moments of deep tension within my actor versus character brain.
The truth is, I've never been able to face death. Everyone has some way of dealing with it and moving on, but I don't know how. How can I be a Starfleet officer if I can't handle death?
Maybe you can't.
Celia, the actor, having to ask these incredibly vulnerable and complex and almost unanswerable questions as this character. What does it mean to grieve? What does it mean to mourn? How do we continue?
We're killing them. We're killing the ones they love, and they're terrified. And that's what they're making me feel.
That day on set when we had to do those scenes, that was such a moment of holding the other shoe, and then that's when it drops of we are killing them. So many people in my life have been killed or died in unfortunate circumstances, and she almost has this moment of, oh God, am I perpetuating my worst fear? Am I contributing to this feeling that I'm trying so desperately to shed? Uhura to Captain Pike. Sir, we need to stop the fuel refinery from being activated. Light bulb, but also heartbreak. There were so many different pieces of what happens in that moment. And so to be able to play all of them was so rewarding, was so rewarding.
We did it. They're safe.
To staying in the fight.
It is wonderful to sort of build the genesis of Kirk and Uhura's relationship, especially because everyone knows how their relationship looks much further in their future.
It's a heavy concept taking on these legacy characters because there's so much expectation, there's so much that's already been done with them by wonderful actors.
James, meet our Chief Science Officer, Mr. Spock. Spock, meet James Kirk, First Officer of the Farragut.
Paul and I get along really wonderfully. It's funny, I forgot that we hadn't met until then on camera because I've spent quite a bit of time with him off camera by now.
Join us.
He came to me off camera and he was like, this is crazy. And I'm like, don't even think about it, man. It's not worth it. It is hard in some of those moments to not be like, wow, this is a momentous thing occurring right now in this scene. That can be such a pitfall, right? You really have to be careful not to sort of be enamored by the immensity of those happenings. There's a platonic love at first sight between the two of them, which is something that I really love, this concept of platonic love at first sight. So often we think of love at first sight as being romantic. And so I love labeling it as that.
You guys look very realistic.
What happens when the world's biggest Star Trek fan lands on the Enterprise?
It's a classic SCOM's operating system.
Don't touch the buttons.
No, I wasn't, no.
I went back and looked at a lot of Lower Decks episodes to get the kind of Boimlerisms down. I mean, I knew I already kind of looked like him, sort of, but I wanted to incorporate, you know, some of his mannerisms from the show. And it was cool to see, to go and look at my voice in an animated character and look at how all the artists animated Boimler and how he moved, and then to try to bring that into my own body was such a weird, trippy experience, but so rewarding and so cool. I snuck a few things in there. Power walked, a lot of hip movements. I think I got the Boimler point.
Without being asked.
It was really fun to just have a preset list of movements and mannerisms and try my best to incorporate all of them.
Do you feel lucky?
No, not at all. I feel like me and Ethan Peck really bonded. We had kind of a bromance. We started calling the Boimler Spock scenes Spoimler.
Okay, so... Okay, is that bad?
I love this duo so much because we're so used to Spock being in situations where everyone's like, come on, man, lighten up. Like, you know, show some emotion. But it was really cool to be in scenes where Spock is with a anxiety-riddled fanboy. It's so weird that, like, Spock being the calm one in that situation just adds to Boimler's anxiety being around him.
Are sparks bad?
Yes. Seek cover.
Sparks are flying. I was able to get a good Boimler scream in there. The Spoimler scenes have a special place in my heart. Ethan's awesome.
I've ruined everything.
One of the themes of this episode of Strange New Worlds is hero worship. Boimler's hero, if you will, is Spock.
I'm sorry, hold up. Look, I'm gonna keep this like 100% profesh, but I was thoroughly unprepared for how hot young Spock was going to be.
When Mariner comes aboard, she has been a massive Uhura fan. So she fangirls out on Uhura, who was one of her heroes.
So is Uhura here? This is amazing. Wow. You guys are great, but is she here?
I love Mariner sitting with Uhura. I think that scene, I could watch that scene on repeat because I know how important it was to Tawny.
I probably shouldn't mention this, but I have always admired you.
Really?
I felt so honored to get to be a part of this important character moment of being the kind of catalyst that tells Uhura, hey, you really need to lighten up.
You know, you're hardworking, unflappable, fearless in the face of a bunch of different aliens that I'm not gonna name or talk about too much because you haven't met them yet. And, you know, you also know how to have fun.
Uhura is such a representative of people who don't know they're wonderful, who don't really get just how special they are yet. It's just a lot of pressure, you know? I mean, I'm 22. I've barely done anything worth admiring yet. It just means a lot to play a character like that, because sometimes you have to be reminded how appreciated you are and the impact that you have on people. How am I supposed to have fun when I know I have to become this universally known, super translating, unflappable, hardworking badass?
Made me feel like, wow, they really included Mariner in like a pivotal moment for that show and for her character development, which was really special to me because, you know, it's one thing to just come in as like chaos and a goof and to be funny, but such a nice moment for her character was really cool.
All right, I think it's time we took a break.
I really don't do breaks.
Yeah, I'm starting to catch that.
So that informed the behavior and the characters and the set. It expanded the tone of the show in a very positive way. If you feel a certain way about a person, it informs the way you look at them. And they both had that with Spock and with Uhura. So that those characters and the relationships with those characters were heightened by the history that they had in their own heads.
Live long and prosper, Mr. Boimler.
Energize.
You also live and...
it really was such a testament to the kind of sturdiness of Strange New Worlds to be able to take like such a shaking, because like our show came in and kind of went, ah, and like shook everything. And their show just kind of went, okay. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful. We didn't break it.
It was good to meet you, Captain.
Doctor! I need a doctor!
208 is a heavy episode.
Incoming transport. Incoming transport.
And writing that episode took a lot out of me, I'll be honest with you. I wanted to do the idea of war and PTSD and loss and trauma that lives with you. I wanted to do it justice, and we had a lot of discussions about how dark do we want it to go. I was always a proponent for as dark as we can get it.
When I read it, it felt strong and credible and, you know, lived in. It gave us a good window into what he's been through and where he's coming from.
I'll handle this.
It's a bit of work to try and create something like that, I don't know, truthfully, and being in the sick bay and having him come in with this entourage of your colleagues, of, you know, Mbenga's colleagues and Chapel's colleagues, and having to run and hide because he just didn't know how to control himself. It was honest, and hopefully that manifested on screen.
Watching Babs go there, really, and understand and get into a space, it was really just powerful. You don't want to put an actor through those kinds of deep, heavy things more than you have to, because it stays with you.
I've just been informed that my time on the ship is being cut short. We don't have as much time as I had hoped to get to know one another.
I'm okay with that.
I love that moment when Babs, as Mbenga puts his hands together, says, please, just leave me alone, because he knows within himself, I cannot be around you right now because I will do something.
Please, leave me alone.
Don't let hate ruin your soul.
You gave the order! Anyone not a Klingon soldier is the enemy.
And he's fighting every instinct, and here's this person engaging him. And what's great is if you listen to what the ambassador is really saying, he's not wrong either.
But I've been doing the best I can to make up for my transgressions.
Whether you like that character or not, like, if you listen to him, he's right. But Mbenga's also right in his own way.
If people knew the truth, my work would be undone.
Your work is built on lies. You never paid for what you did.
We take you right up to the moment, right up to the fight, and then we don't see how it actually ended.
Why couldn't you leave me alone?
Mbenga, I'm here to provide healing. Please, let me have a chance to help you heal.
I said no.
Don't be stubborn.
You're welcome.
Can't you sit?
Get your hands off!
So selfish, so human.
Don't!
Did he kill him? Is that cold-blooded murder? Was that self-defense? Those are the questions that we're hoping the audience maybe ask ourselves. Right and wrong, good and bad, they're not as binary, and life and humanity and the universe is much more complicated, and you really have to kind of decide for yourself. And I think that's what, hopefully the episode presents a situation to the audience, and the viewer kind of has to decide for themselves what they think happened, what they would want to happen, and who was right and who was wrong.
Biobed 2 is working again. At least for now. But I know it's only a matter of time before it shuts down again. Some things break in a way that can never be repaired. Only managed.
Episode 10, Ortegas finally gets to go on an away mission.
That was one of my favorite scenes in the episode.
You gonna start the engine sometime soon, Erica?
You gonna backseat drive me, sir? I'm waiting till we're under 1,500 meters. Just stay below their scans. Don't worry. I did this 100 times during the war.
In the shuttle ride down to the planet, I actually have all sorts of things to play with, and what Ortegas is flying down with, like, is an actual, it's almost like I'm going right back to that moment because I'm doing this, but it's a piece that shakes, and I'm pretty sure by the end of shooting that scene, I had broken it because I was really getting into it.
Everybody had fun. I had fun. She had loads of fun. Like, everybody just embraced it, you know. To me, she was Tom Cruise in Top Gun. It's like, just go for it. She's confident, cocky, but she has the skills to back it up.
Oh.
I thought you were a test pilot.
And Ortega's, she delivers, you know, every time. Like, she has this wonderful sense of humor that she doesn't linger on it. It's her character, and I love what Melissa does with it.
So you're just gonna leave us in here?
Oh, sorry. What are my manners? Montgomery Scott, at your service. Lieutenant, junior grade.
We had talked a lot about when to bring him in. As we were breaking the story for the finale, it was clear there was a engineer-sized hole right in the middle of the story.
You built a Gorn transponder?
I needed a scientist. I needed somebody who might have an interesting solution.
Using equipment from our solar array. Basically, to a scanner, the shuttle looked like a Gorn ship.
Who might be like a quirky surprise right in the middle of what is a very dark, very, you know, like driving, action-oriented episode. For whatever reason, season 2 of Strange New Worlds has focused on a lot of relationships. It's focused on love stories. And we sort of realized as we got to the end of the season that we had a unique opportunity to tell this series of stories about what are the things that you would do for love.
Marie, talk to me. Why did that Gorn run away?
I don't know, Chris.
Hey. I came all the way here to find you. Trust me with the truth.
It happened yesterday. The eggs mature in about a day and a half.
It's a simple idea, but boy, does it make the action sequences mean a lot more. Spock trying to rescue Chapel, when it's Batel putting her life on the line to save Pike.
Here's my choice. We free the device, install it in your shuttle, I fly it into the Gorn Tower, destroy it, and you and the rest of the survivors beam to Enterprise.
There's got to be a way to save you.
It just amps up everything 1,000 times more.
You have to let us at least try. Marie.
The field is gone. Transporters and comms are back online.
Spock to transporter. 2 to beam aboard as soon as possible.
2. Acknowledged and relayed, Lieutenant.
Number 1 to Pike, do you read?
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice, number 1.
No time to waste, Chris. I don't know how much time we have before the Gorn react.
I need you to track the colonists and beam them up. They're in a building 2 clicks south by southwest.
What about you?
3 to beam up directly to sick bay. We'll need a med team.
Christine?
And also, those stories are too big to tell in one episode. So, you know, part of the fun, I think, of showing an audience an episodic show for 2 seasons and then getting to the end and waiting for them to think like, well, how are they gonna wrap this up? Well, how are they gonna wrap this up? How are they gonna wrap this up?
What are you saying?
The colonists in the landing party appear to have been beamed up by the Gorn.
Oh, they're not. You know?
Priority message from Starfleet. Admiral April's ordering our immediate withdrawal. But the Gorn still have our people.
Captain. Captain. Orders, Captain.